Welcome to Radio 64. Welcome to Radio 64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I'm your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. Share your thoughts on this episode and request music by following the show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod. And please rate, subscribe, and share this show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We opened up the show with Every Story Begins with a Name by Big Giant Circles and Zircon from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. That track was specifically from the album Final Fantasy VII Voices of the Lifestream. And yes, I am a sheep. This is a Final Fantasy VII special episode. Every track is going to be a remix from the game Final Fantasy VII in anticipation for the new Final Fantasy VII Remake game. I love the original Final Fantasy VII. It's my second favorite Final Fantasy game. I think it's great. I think the original is fantastic. And the soundtrack for Final Fantasy VII is also my second favorite Final Fantasy game. But really, it is a very even playing field. I love Final Fantasy VI and its soundtrack, and I think it's perfect. But I think Final Fantasy VII, its soundtrack by Nobuo Uematsu, is just something so unique. And the soundtrack just helped create that weird world, especially the weird opening world that you're in when you're in the opening areas of Midgar, and you're just seeing this strange city for the first time. And it's this cyberpunk sci-fi fantasy game, and it's unlike anything else that had come before. It really was mind-blowing, and the soundtrack just elevated it all. It's amazing what Nobuo Uematsu was able to do. The creativity that was on display when he created that soundtrack. It's the work of a master. He is a master. For the Final Fantasy VII show, yes, that was Every Story Begins with a Name by Big Giant Circles and Zircon from Final Fantasy VII. From OC Remix's album, Final Fantasy VII Voices of the Lifestream. That track was the opening bombing mission. So that's an opening of a game that I think is cemented in all our memories. For everyone who's played Final Fantasy VII, it's hard to forget that opening mission and that music that's playing. Up next is Short Skirts by djpretzel and VIG from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII, also from the album Final Fantasy VII Voices of the Lifestream. was Short Skirts by djpretzel and VIG from OC Remix's album, Voices of the Livestream, from the game Final Fantasy VII. That's Tifa's theme. Tifa is really the one my heart belongs to in Final Fantasy VII. I don't really care too much about the Flower Girl. If you haven't listened to OC Remix's album, Voices of the Livestream, you definitely need to check it out. It also, like the game's soundtrack in general, it has a really eerie, strange, techno-y vibe to the whole thing. A really cool soundscape throughout. I really like that take on Tifa's theme. It's peaceful for somebody who's not afraid to get their hands dirty. Up next is a remix from the original track, the Mako Reactor, which was so eerie and so dark and foreboding when you first heard it and you're in the Mako Reactor for the first time. It's such a strange, dark piece. What we have here is something that has taken that original dark piece and made it even darker. The electric guitar here that's pure metal is making the original track something so heavy and so dark you can barely see. It's scary. You don't want to be in this Mako Reactor long. So this is Make Who React Her by Artificial Fear from OC Remix from the game Final Fantasy VII. That was Make Who Reactor by Artificial Fear from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. You listen to that thing, that guitar is just shaking your bones. It just runs down your spine. I love it. Okay, the main theme of Final Fantasy VII is here now, along with the track Anxiety, but it's the main theme of Final Fantasy VII that I just find so beautiful in this remix. This is a vocal piece that has Jillian Aversa singing throughout it. It's got Jillian Aversa and Zircon, a married couple working together for this album. The Final Fantasy VII Voice is a live stream album. This track has kind of a world vibe to it, but it has a very strong electronic vibe throughout it. The lyrics that you'll be hearing say, into light, into sound, into time, let love surround, let love surround. Just a really beautiful piece from Final Fantasy VII's wonderful main theme. This is Deliverance of the Heart by Jillian Aversa and Zircon from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. That was Deliverance of the Heart by Jillian, Aversa, and Zircon from OC Remix's album, Final Fantasy VII Voices of the Lifestream, from the game Final Fantasy VII. And yeah, I've always been a huge fan of Jillian Aversa's voice. Now, I actually don't know if this track is going to be in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm not sure what Red 13's status is, but I wasn't going to do a Final Fantasy VII show and not include the track Cosmo Canyon. Is one that has always stuck out to me. I love it. I was a huge fan of Red 13 when I was playing this game. I love the character. I love the character design. And I love the music that plays during his story. And this remix is just so fun. It's one you can clap along to. This is called Cosmo by MkVaff from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. That was Cosmo by MkVaff from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. It kind of turns the Cosmo Canyon into a bit of a barnyard stomp there. All right, time for a fight with the Shinra Shuffle. This is remixing the fanfare and fight on music. You'll know when the fanfare music happens. This is a jazz take on the track Fight On, and like a live jazz performance, has the instruments each taking a different solo, and they've included some clapping and cheering in there, which I think really add to the atmosphere. So this is Shinra Shuffle by the Runaway 5 from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. That was the Shinra Shuffle by the Runaway 5 from ocremix.org from Final Fantasy VII. I'm really impressed with that. The fight on theme is very good. The live jazz feel that they have here is fantastic, while also keeping it a track that if they took this jazz take into a game where you had to do a battle, I could even see Cloud and his friends in Final Fantasy VII battling to this track, this jazz take. I love it. And then, of course, hearing the fanfare always makes me happy. We have Cid's theme up next from Final Fantasy VII soundtrack by Nobuo Uematsu. This is a favorite track of mine, one that I really like to listen to, but it's been a real joy to listen to this track full volume with my headphones while preparing for this show. The vocals in this are just so unique and so strong and so inspiring in a lot of ways. It's a weird mix. A lot of different elements happening. It has kind of a hip-hop aggressive vibe at some points. It's got the very inspirational source of Cid's theme, and then it brings in these lyrics where it's supposed to be kind of a big bombastic song. It's one that the louder you play it, the better it is. This is the Crossroads by Jovette Rivera from OC Remix's album Final Fantasy VII Voices of the Lifestream from the game Final Fantasy VII. That was the Crossroads by Jovette Rivera from OC Remix from the game Final Fantasy VII. Again, if you haven't, check out the album Voices of the Livestream. It's just a wonderful tribute to Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. Now this is a track that I can't get enough of, and I wish it was 10 times longer. It is a dancey, chiptune-y, disco-y mix that's also a little dark. Its darkness definitely comes from the original source, the Genova theme from Final Fantasy VII. It's remixing Let the Battles Begin and the Genova track. Man, the Genova theme, everybody talks about One Winged Angel, and it is definitely a standout track, but there's just something so stressful and ethereal about the Genova theme. It's that countdown feeling that the track has, and not really knowing what Genova, the calamity, is in Final Fantasy VII. It's so strange, and I love it. And yeah, this one, it becomes this electronic synth piece that you'd imagine maybe hearing in the discotheque. And it's got some really fun guitar work in here as well. So this is Death, Rebirth, Life, 1986 by Anti-Syne from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. That was Death, Rebirth, Life 1986 by Anti-Syne from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. I'm a big fan of Anti-Syne's sound. A lot of his tracks have a similar vibe to them, and it's really cool. This dark dance pop sound. I love it. Now we're going to play something a little bit more gentle. It's a very pretty acoustic piece. Very relaxing. It's two guitars just playing the duet, remixing the original source Words Drowned by Fireworks by Nobuo Uematsu from also the album, again, Final Fantasy VII Voices of the Lifestream. So many of the tracks that came off of Voices of the Lifestream feel like a definitive take of the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. Daydreaming again by Hocket from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. That was Daydreaming Again by Hocket from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII just has some really wonderful, quiet moments. It's got its motorcycle chases. It's got its one-winged angels. It's got its 10-minute-long summon animations. But then it's also these quiet moments with this Cloud and Tifa sitting at a playground talking about their future. Cloud and Tifa on a date at a casino amusement park. Tifa reaching out a hand to save Cloud. Tifa always there, supporting Cloud even when he doesn't realize it. Tifa saving Cloud when he doesn't know who he is anymore. That was Daydreaming Again by Hocket. Okay, we couldn't do a Final Fantasy VII special episode, without playing One Winged Angel. And, I wasn't going to allow it. I talked to the people in charge of this show and I said, listen, either we play One Winged Angel in the Final Fantasy VII special or I walk. And you know what? They listened. I think they respected me putting my foot down on this episode. This, you know what? Every track that has come from a OCR album has been from the Final Fantasy VII Voices of the Livestream album. But this one comes from BadAzz, the boss themes. And it is a badass boss theme of One Winged Angel by Nobuo Uematsu. And, you know, I had said that Mako Reactor track, the Make Who React to Her, was a dark piece. I had said Death Rebirth Life has some darkness in it. This track is pure evil. This is the One Winged Devil source, huh? How about that? One Winged Devil. Oh man, that's good. Where do I copyright that kind of phrase? It's so dark, it's so evil. The heavy electronica in here is so Griffiths, and yet it has something that I want to headbang to. I want to get into a mosh pit and just headbang through this track. Seriously, it's like a dance party straight out of Hades, this track. It's called BadAzz by PrototypeRaptor from OC Remix from the game Final Fantasy VII. That was BadAzz by PrototypeRaptor from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII from the album BadAzz Boss Themes. That takes that One-Winged Angel theme, that Sephiroth theme, which is usually very operatic, very orchestral, and it just throws mud into its eyes and makes it so mean. Okay, and that was the show this episode. Sorry I had to talk so fast. Some of these tracks were a little bit longer. I wanted to get every one of them in. I hope if you are playing Final Fantasy VII Remake that you are enjoying it. I'm not doing this for every game that gets remade. I would never get anything else done, but I felt like Final Fantasy VII is just so big. And you know what? I loved listening to all these tracks, preparing for it. It's made me excited for the remake, and I'm somebody who'd rather older games just be available and be able to be played. I don't need everything remade, but with all the good reviews, everybody talking about how much they love it, it's reminded me of how much I loved Final Fantasy VII. I might have to play the Final Fantasy VII Remake at some point. I don't know. Maybe I'll become a hypocrite. But thank you for listening to Radio 64 and our special Final Fantasy VII episode, Radio 64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I have been your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak, and believe it or not, I used to have some people call me Red in high school because of Red 13 from Final Fantasy VII. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. You can share your thoughts on this episode and request music by following the show on Facebook and Twitter at Radio64Pod. Please rate, subscribe, and share the show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, and I will see you next episode.